I set my badge on the conference table at 10 to 47 on a Tuesday morning and walked out of the building while Sandra Reyes was still mid-sentence. No scene, no speech. I just stood up, put the badge down between a forgotten coffee cup and a stack of validation binders I'd spent 3 weeks writing, and left. The drive home took 22 minutes. I spent most of it staring at the road thinking about my mortgage. My name is Hank Mercer, 56 years old, 26 years in medical device quality engineering. And that Tuesday morning was the day I stopped letting other people cash checks off my work. Let me back up 8 months. Vantage Medical Systems had a compliance problem. Their ISO 13485 system was held together with outdated paperwork and optimism. Calibration logs were a mess. Supplier documentation had holes you could drive a truck through. Their validation protocols wouldn't survive 10 minutes under a real FDA audit. My job was to fix it. So I did. 8 months, 12-hour days. I walked every inch of that production floor with a clipboard and a calibration kit, mapped every critical control point, found every deviation that could trigger a warning letter. I built the supplier qualification matrix from nothing, wrote the validation protocols, calibration schedules, measurement procedures, every single piece. First pass yield was sitting at 82% when I started. I got it to 93%. Annual compliance costs were running $18,000. My system brought that down to $65,000. Inspection time dropped 45%. I color-coded the implementation timeline so the executives could follow along without getting lost in the regulatory details they had no business pretending to understand. Troy Weston attended meetings. That was his contribution. Troy was 29, MBA from Vanderbilt. He could build a clean slide deck, and he could sound confident in a conference room. On the production floor, he was useless. He'd never held a micrometer. He'd never spent a night troubleshooting a calibration gap. He didn't know the difference between a critical control point and a break room. He was also the nephew of Gil Weston, our VP of Operations. The day of the executive presentation, I laid out everything. Every data point, every projection, every process flow I'd spent months building. Troy sat at the head of the table. I sat 2 seats down. Sandra shook his hand, called it his methodology, said his approach had saved the company from a potential FDA shutdown. The room went along with it. Someone mentioned his regulatory insight. Another executive said it was impressive how he'd identified compliance gaps the whole quality team had missed for years. Troy nodded and soaked it up. I waited. 5 seconds, 10, 15. He didn't say my name, didn't look in my direction. I unclipped my badge and set it on the table. I'm done. Effective immediately, people stopped mid-sentence. The VP Troy had been charming, looked at me like I'd started speaking a different language. Sandra took a step toward me. Hank, what are you? I'm resigning. Written notice by end of day. Troy finally looked at me, really looked. I saw something flicker across his face, panic fast, then covered up. He opened his mouth. I didn't wait to hear what came out. I walked out, normal pace. Past the inspection stations I'd calibrated. Past the floor operators who'd watched me put in the hours. Perry Owens, a senior floor tech, 59 years old, been at Vantage longer than anyone, was standing near the line. He saw me walking out with no badge. He gave me one slow nod. I got in my truck and drove home, 22 minutes to think about what I'd just done. Mortgage? $2,400 a month. My daughter April finishing her senior year at Penn State. Tuition due in 2 months. My son Scott in his 2nd year of a master's program, counting on me for expenses. Pension clock running 26 years in, not quite at the threshold where walking away made financial sense. At 56, this was not the rational move. But watching Troy Weston stand there and accept applause for 8 months of my nights and weekends, that had a cost too. One I'd been paying for 2 years. Sandra called within 20 minutes. I let the first few go. By the 10th attempt, I picked up. You're overreacting, she said. No, hello. Troy was representing the team. That's what project leads do. Project lead? Since when? He has relationships with Gil's group. Corporate trusts his presentations. That matters in these situations, so I do the work and he gets the applause because people like his MBA vocabulary better. That's not what I'm saying. Then tell me what you're saying. Silence. Then, sleep on it. Don't make a rash decision. We can sort this out Monday. I hung up. I went home and sat in my garage for an hour, not working on anything, just sitting there going back through every other time it had happened. Troy rephrasing my ideas in team meetings like they'd just occurred to him. His name appearing first on validation reports I'd written 85% of. Troy getting invited to regulatory strategy sessions while I stayed late calibrating equipment that had both our signatures on the logs. Mine because I did the work, his because he happened to be nearby when I finished. 2 years. That pattern had been running for 2 years. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, that the work spoke for itself, that eventually people would notice who was actually producing results. They noticed Troy around 6 p.m. My phone buzzed. Perry Owens. "Heard what happened," he said. "Yeah. Took you long enough, Hank. That was it. Didn't need anything else." Sandra kept texting me for the next 3 weeks. Not every day, but enough that I started recognizing the pattern. Monday morning, she'd send something about the implementation falling behind. Wednesday, something about the audit timeline. Friday, nothing, probably too tired to bother. I didn't respond to any of them. What I did do was work. Real work, on my own terms, for people who actually needed it. The Ohio job was the one that changed how I thought about all of this. Their quality manager, a guy named Hal, had been fighting the same compliance fires for 2 years before he called me. FDA warning letter sitting on his desk. Corporate breathing down his neck. His team running in circles, because nobody had ever bothered to fix the root problem. They just kept patching symptoms. I spent the first 3 days just walking the floor, not talking much, just watching where the bottlenecks were, where the operators had developed workarounds that nobody had documented, where the measurement data didn't match what the logs said it should. By day 4, I knew exactly what was wrong. 5 critical control points, all of them feeding into each other. Fix one in isolation, and the others would keep breaking it. You had to fix all 5 in the right sequence, or you were just moving the problem around. Hal asked me on day 3 if I had a sense of what we were dealing with. Yeah, I said, give me one more day on the floor. He did. On day 5, I sat down with him and walked him through everything. No PowerPoint. Just me, a legal pad, and the numbers. $85,000 a month in non-compliance costs, most of it traceable back to those 5 control points. Fix the calibration sequencing, standardize 3 specific processes, upgrade 2 pieces of measurement equipment. Total cost, $22,000. Monthly savings, once it's running right, $55,000. Hal stared at the legal pad for a long moment. How long to implement? 3 weeks if your team follows the sequence exactly. And if they don't, then you'll spend 6 weeks getting back to where you started. Follow the sequence. They followed the sequence. 3 weeks later, Hal called me. First month numbers came in, he said. We're already at $51,000 in savings. It'll hit full run rate next month. Give it time. Hank. He paused. I've had 3 consultants in here over the past 2 years. Not one of them spent a single day on the floor. They all just asked for our documentation and wrote reports. I didn't say anything. You're the first one who actually looked at the thing, that stayed with me. Not because it was a compliment, because it was just the truth about how the work actually gets done. You can't fix something you haven't seen. You can understand a production line from a conference room. I'd known that for 26 years. Apparently it wasn't as obvious as I'd thought. The Pennsylvania job came a week after Ohio wrapped cardiac device manufacturer, running at 65% yield and couldn't figure out why. They'd had 3 different people look at their sterilization validation over the past year. Nobody had found the problem. I found it on day 2. Their cycle time was set at 175 minutes based on a validation study done 6 years ago. Equipment had been upgraded twice since then. Nobody had revalidated. The new equipment ran hotter and more efficiently. They were over-processing every single batch, which was degrading the devices and driving up their reject rate. The fix was straightforward once you knew what you were looking at. Revalidate, reset cycle time to 90 minutes, update the documentation. First pass rate went from 65% to 86% in the first month. Up another 7 points the month after that. Their operations director shook my hand the day I wrapped up. We paid 3 people before you to solve that problem, she said. You found it in 2 days. They were probably looking at the documentation, I said. I looked at the equipment. She laughed. I didn't. I wasn't trying to be funny. By the time Sandra called me at 9 p.m. that Thursday, I was in the middle of my 6th active engagement. 18 companies over 10 weeks, billing $130 an hour. Doing the same work I'd always done, just for people who understood what they were paying for. The difference wasn't the work. The work was identical to what I'd been doing at Vantage. The difference was that when I walked into a facility now, they knew my name before I got there. They'd called me specifically. They'd heard about the results, not from a PowerPoint presentation, but from other quality managers who'd seen their own numbers change. That's how reputation actually works in this industry. Not through networking events, not through executive summaries, through results that show up in someone's monthly numbers and make them pick up the phone and ask who did that. Troy had never understood that. He'd understood the performance of expertise, the vocabulary, the confident delivery in the conference room, the ability to present someone else's work like it was intuitive to him. But the industry doesn't run on performances. It runs on yield rates and audit outcomes, and whether your validation protocols hold up when an FDA inspector starts asking questions. And that was the part he couldn't fake. That was the part that was about to catch up with him. When Sandra said he couldn't execute the protocols, I already knew. I'd known it was coming from the day I walked out. You can take credit for a framework you don't understand, but you cannot run it. Not when something unexpected happens. Not when the variables shift, and you have to actually know why each step was built the way it was. I told her my terms. 30 an hour, direct presentation to corporate and FDA, and Troy in the room for all of it. She said yes to all three. I hung up and sat in my home office for a few minutes, not doing anything in particular. Then I pulled out a legal pad and started writing down everything I was going to need. I spent 5 days getting ready. Not 5 days reviewing the framework. I knew that cold. I could have walked in there and presented it without a single note. 8 months of building the thing from scratch has a way of burning it into your memory. What I spent 5 days doing was documentation, the complete paper trail of how every single piece of it got built. I pulled every email I'd sent over those 8 months, every revision with timestamps, every floor observation log with my initials and dates, every supplier analysis spreadsheet I'd built from scratch. I pulled the version histories on every document, which showed exactly when each file was created, who created it, and what changes were made when. Troy's contributions across 8 months of email threads were easy to find. There weren't many. Sounds good. Let's circle back on this in the meeting. Can you get me the summary by Thursday? Needs to be in the exec format. That last one was him asking me to reformat my own work so he could present it. I printed everything. 3 binders. Each one organized by phase: initial assessment, measurement studies, implementation, my handwritten notes in the margins, calibration data with my initials on every page, emails showing me asking the questions, doing the research, proposing the solutions at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, while Troy was at a Vanderbilt alumni dinner. Judy came into the office Saturday night and looked at the stacks of paper on the desk. "How much of that is his?" she asked. I held up 2 printed emails. She looked at them, looked at the 3 full binders. Didn't say anything for a second. "Good," she said, and went back to bed. Tuesday morning, I showed up 15 minutes early. The plant looked exactly the same as it had 10 weeks ago. Same clean room smell, same hum from the production floor. Same security desk where I'd badged in 1,000 times before, except this time I didn't badge in. I signed in as a visitor, contract consultant. Sandra met me in the lobby. She looked like she'd aged a month in the past week. Dark circles, suit not as pressed as usual, the kind of tired that comes from explaining the same problem to increasingly impatient people above you. "Corporate is already here," she said. "They flew in this morning. FDA pre-audit team arrives tomorrow. Is Troy here?" "He's here." I told him it was a transition briefing. He'll figure out what it is soon enough. We walked through the clean room. I passed the inspection stations I'd calibrated, the measurement equipment I'd recommended upgrading, the workstations where I'd logged more late hours than I could count. I was carrying all 3 binders. 10 weeks ago, I'd walked out of here with nothing but my badge sitting on the table. Walking back in felt different than I'd expected. Not triumphant, just steady. Like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was paid to do. 17 people in the conference room, full corporate team from headquarters. Senior plant leadership, regional quality managers, 2 people in suits I didn't recognize, probably legal given what was at stake with the audit the next day. And Troy near the back in a nicer suit than usual. He looked up when I walked in. I could see it immediately, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands were flat on the table instead of loose. He knew something was off. He just didn't know exactly what yet. Our eyes met for half a second. He looked away first. The lead corporate VP, same one who'd shaken Troy's hand 10 weeks ago, stood up and extended his hand. Mr. Mercer, we've heard a lot about you. Several people in our supplier network speak very highly of your work. I appreciate that. I looked at Troy when I said it. His face had already started going red. I sat up at the front of the room, connected my laptop, laid the 3 binders on the table where everyone could see them. Then I started. No rushing, $130 an hour. They were going to get every minute. I walked them through the initial assessment first, how I'd identified which processes were generating compliance risk without adding measurable value, the specific gaps I'd found in the first 2 weeks of floor observation. The lead VP stopped me. Troy, were you involved in this assessment phase? I didn't look at Troy. I conducted the assessment independently. It required about 3 weeks of direct floor observation, timing studies, cross-referencing production data with maintenance logs, identifying deviation patterns, approximately 85 hours of floor time in that phase alone. Troy said nothing. I moved to the measurement studies, the calibration gaps in stations 3 and 7, the cascade failures they'd been causing throughout the entire line. I explained exactly how I'd found them and exactly why they mattered. Then one of the corporate executives, not the lead VP, a younger one sitting to his left, leaned forward. I want to understand something about the sterilization sequencing protocol. Walk me through the decision logic on cycle intervals. Why 4-hour windows instead of 6? I answered without looking at my notes. Explain the contamination risk curve, the equipment tolerance data, the regulatory precedent from 3 similar FDA audits I'd studied during the research phase. The executive nodded slowly, writing something down. Then he looked at Troy. Troy, can you explain why the 4-hour window was chosen over 6? The room went quiet. Troy opened his mouth, closed it, looked down at the table, looked back up. Nothing came out. 5 seconds. 10, long enough that people stopped pretending not to notice. I answered it again. Same explanation, same data, same calm. The executive looked at Troy for another moment. Then he looked at the lead VP. Something passed between them. No words. Just a look that meant they were both recalculating something important. I kept going. By the time I got to the final section, the implementation roadmap, the room had completely shifted. The executives who'd flown in from headquarters were leaning forward. The plant leadership was asking about timelines. The 2 people in suits were writing steadily. Troy had stopped fidgeting. He was just sitting there, hands flat on the table, looking at nothing in particular. The lead VP cleared his throat. I need to ask a direct question. When we were in this room 10 weeks ago, we were told this framework was your work, Troy. Can someone clarify how that collaboration actually functioned? I looked at Troy, held it long enough that everyone in the room saw me do it. Then I turned back to the VP. There was no collaboration. I built this framework alone over 8 months. Troy's contribution was attending the meeting where I presented it to you. The VP who'd given Troy that handshake turned slowly in his chair. Troy, is that accurate? Troy's jaw tightened. He looked at the table. Did you develop this framework? The executive's voice had gone completely flat. The silence ran long enough to be its own answer. No, Troy said. I didn't develop it. Nobody spoke. Then the lead VP said, quietly, Troy, we'll need a separate conversation about this. We all will, the other executive said. Same flat tone. We made significant resource decisions based on our assessment of your technical capabilities. If that assessment was built on false information, we need to understand exactly how far back that goes. Troy didn't respond. He was still looking at the table. I picked up my pen and wrote the next implementation date on the whiteboard. We still had work to do. The FDA pre-audit team arrived the next morning at 8 a.m. sharp. 2 inspectors, both of them the kind of people who don't waste time on small talk. They came in with laptops and clipboards and a list of questions that would take most quality managers half a day just to read. Sandra introduced me as the consultant who built the compliance framework. No mention of Troy, he wasn't in the room. The lead inspector, a woman in her 50s named Patricia, shook my hand and got straight to it. We had concerns coming in based on the pre-submission documentation, specifically around your validation protocol sequencing and supplier qualification records. Walk me through how those were built. I walked her through it. Not a presentation, not a slide deck. Just me explaining the thinking behind every decision in plain language from memory. Why each supplier had been ranked the way it was. Why the validation sequence was structured the way it was. What the failure modes were for each critical control point, and how the framework accounted for them. Patricia asked sharp questions. I answered all of them. Her colleague, younger, quieter, spent most of the first hour going through my documentation binders page by page. At one point, he stopped, looked up, and asked about a specific calibration note in Station 7's log. This annotation here. Why was the interval changed from 72 hours to 48 in month 4? Equipment in Station 7 was showing drift patterns starting in month 3. I ran a study over 3 weeks and determined the drift was consistent enough to warrant tightening the interval. The alternative was waiting for a deviation event during an actual audit. He wrote something down. You caught it before it became a problem. That's the job. Patricia looked up from her notes. Most facilities we visit, the documentation tells one story and the floor tells another. Yours are telling the same story. They should. I wrote the documentation after spending time on the floor. Not before. She nodded once and moved to the next item. The audit ran 2 full days. 0 critical observations. 2 minor ones, both of which I'd already identified during the original build and had pre-written remediation plans for. I handed Patricia the documents before she finished writing up the findings. She looked at the pages, looked at me. You anticipated these. Yes, when did you write these up? During the original implementation, 8 months ago, a pause. Most facilities scrambled to respond after the fact. You had the response ready before we arrived. If you build the system right, you already know where the weak points are. Better to document them than pretend they don't exist. She signed off on the report that afternoon. Sandra found me in the hallway on the way out. 0 criticals, she said, right? Last audit 3 years ago, we got 4 criticals and a warning letter. I know. That was part of what I was fixing. She stood there a moment. Thank you, Hank. I nodded, picked up my binders, walked out. Troy was moved to vendor relations 3 weeks later. No technical authority, no direct reports. A title that sounded like a sideways move and was. He sat in that role for 6 months. Vendor relations requires building real trust with people who can spot a lack of technical depth faster than most. They'd dealt with Troy's type before. He left Vantage quietly. No announcement. 1 week he was in the company directory. The next time someone checked, he wasn't. Last I heard, he was selling ERP software in Nashville, which is fine work, just not work that requires knowing the difference between a calibrated measurement system and one that only looks calibrated on paper. I didn't follow it closely. I had other work to do. 14 months after walking out of that meeting room, I was running 22 active client engagements across 10 states. No office, no staff. Just me, a laptop, a set of calibration tools I'd been adding to for 26 years, and a reputation that had built itself one fixed system at a time. Hal from the Ohio operation referred me to 3 other companies in his regional network. The Pennsylvania operations director mentioned my name at an industry conference I wasn't even attending. I didn't need to be there. The work showed up on its own because other quality managers were looking at their own numbers and asking who had fixed someone else's. Scott finished his master's in engineering that spring, debt-free. He called me the night before his last exam. You doing okay, Dad? Working, you're always working. Different kind of working now, he laughed. He got it. April started her residency applications ahead of schedule. When she introduced me to her study group over a video call, she said, "This is my dad. He makes sure medical devices don't fail when they're inside people." I'd never put it that way before, but she wasn't wrong. Judy retired 11 months after I walked out of Vantage, told her boss she was done on a Thursday afternoon and texted me, "Done. What do you want for dinner?" I laughed for a solid minute. First real laugh in a while. 2 years out. I got invited to speak at the Southwest Medical Device Quality Conference in Dallas. 400 people. Quality directors, regulatory specialists, operations managers from across the industry. Session title, Building Sustainable Compliance Systems, A Practitioner's Approach. I stood at that podium and looked out at the room and thought about Sandra shaking Troy's hand. About him leaning back in that conference chair nodding along, while people praised him for 8 months of my nights and weekends. Then I thought about Patricia, the FDA inspector, saying, "Your documentation and your floor are telling the same story. That's the whole job. That's all it ever was." I gave the talk, answered questions for 20 minutes after. 3 people came up and asked for my card. Perry texted me that night. He'd seen a photo someone posted from the conference. "Saw the photos. You look like you belong up there." I texted back, "Still just doing the same work." He replied, "That's exactly why you belong up there. Here's what I know now that I didn't let myself know at Vantage. The work doesn't speak for itself. It never did. You have to make sure people know whose voice they're hearing. Not by being loud about it, not by playing political games, just by making sure your name is attached to what you built. Your results are documented under your name, and the people who matter know who to call when something actually needs to get fixed. Troy understood the performance of competence, the vocabulary, the slide decks, the confident delivery in a conference room. He was good at all of that. But the industry doesn't run on performances. It runs on whether your validation protocols hold up when an FDA inspector sits across the table and starts asking specific questions. It runs on yield rates and audit outcomes and whether your calibration logs tell the same story as your production floor. That part you can't fake. I'm Hank Mercer. 56 years old, medical device quality consultant. Not the guy who got his work stolen, the guy who built something bigger than what was taken. Walking out that day was the best professional decision I ever made. The second best was making sure Troy was in the room when I explained exactly what he'd claimed as his and exactly why he'd never understood a word of it. The real danger at 56 isn't losing a job. It's spending another decade being the engine of a machine that only puts someone else's name on the results. When you finally stop waiting for the room to notice you and start making it impossible for the room to ignore you, that's not a career move. That's getting your life back.